Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, peoplings, earthlings everywhere. Right. So this morning I have been watching the Court of Appeal live stream via The Sun. And I've been listening to Harry's barrister putting forth her reasons for his appeal. A bit high up there, that's better. She's called, I believe, something like Shahim Fatima. A very eloquent young lady, very well spoken, clearly educated, barrister. But, right, I'll sum it up for you just quickly for those of you who don't want to. He's not going to win this, okay, in my opinion. Now I'll come to why. Now, there are barristers and there are barristers, and I'm not one. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a barrister, and I have no legal qualifications. I do, however, have extensive experience in court. I shall say no more. Now, all barristers are highly qualified. They have to be to get there, but they're all different personalities. Doesn't mean that they are talented, and I have seen and I have had some talented lawyers and barristers. It's different in the UK. You have a solicitor and you have a barrister. This lady's a barrister. Some barristers are so eloquent and know the court, they read the room, shall we say, which is an excellent expression. They can have the court in the palm of their hand, and as they tip it and make their point, the whole room follows them. Everyone in the room understands everything they're saying. And then there are other barristers that is not the case. Now, although Miss Fatima is very clearly spoken, very eloquent, I will tell you this much. I did nod off a couple of times, I think, and I'm going to exaggerate to make the point here. Probably around about the 273rd case law she was citing to make the exact same fucking point over and over and over and over and over. Talk about ramming a point home. And her point was, at one point, one of the judges interrupted her and said, "Can I just clarify what you're actually trying to say?" And the point she was trying to make with all this repetitive case law is about policy. Previous decisions of the court where they have said that policy is more than a guideline, it's law. The judge made the point that every single case law that she'd cited up to that point were immigration cases. Now, yeah, a case doesn't have to be on the same subject matter to be called as case law, because what they're looking for is a decision. But honestly, this woman, the quickest way I can describe it, of the way she continued for 95 long minutes, was like a child in front of a parent who, to win their argument or get their way, would say, please, 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 for 95 minutes. She only needed to pull out 4 or 5 case laws and examples within them. She didn't need to find example after example after example after example after, until the judge said, well, firstly, he said, what you're pulling out are all immigration cases. Now, with the subject of immigration, decisions that are made on those subjects, those are dealing with the masses. They have to be fair to an immigration case, but they have to be fair to public interest. It's very broad. And what we're talking about is RAVEC and royal protection, which is very narrow. She was trying to make the point that RAVEC, firstly, the judge in the previous case was wrong. He was wrong all day long. That's fair enough, because you've got to have a reason to appeal. So their grounds are the judge was just wrong. And when the judge said to her, we've got to be careful how we apply this. And then later on, another judge sort of pulled her up on the point and said, Harry's circumstances changed. He stopped being a working royal, and this has never happened before. With Edward, but it's not an identical situation. I don't think Edward had Edward, firstly, was the king. Okay, totally fucking different situation. Harry was never the king, nowhere near being the king. He's a royal spoilt brat. And he had a little tantrum, flounced off, and then demanded he wanted the same security. leaving Ravek and the courts and Home Office scratching their head going, well, what do we do here? Judge went on to explain, saying, well, he is going to get protection. Then she said, I'm going to go on to explain why that's not ideal. I think that's when I nodded off. I admit, okay, I nodded off. I mean, I know she's not playing to the crowd. She's not interested in court of public opinion. She's trying to get the Court of Appeal to see things her way. But oh boy, on the 3 or 4 times that the judges interrupted her just to clarify what she was saying. And I think they were trying to make the point, you don't have to go on and on and on and on and on, because one of us is going to die. Someone in this court is actually going to die before you finished. She replied to them with, well, that's not how I see things. And then she quite irritatingly started to speak more slowly for the old judges until they see things her way. Oh my God. Talk about huffy. Very, very huffy. At one point, I'm certain one of the judges said because he said, are you quoting from your own work? And she, the court was laughing, and she said, oh, no, I don't believe I've ever been accused of using my own sources and my own published legal material. Blah, blah, blah. And one of the judges said something, do you think you could be a little more self-effacing? And I thought, Now, the reason that in my opinion, he's not going to win, and I could be completely wrong, he might win, they might think she's marvellous, she's made all these great points. I honestly don't think he's going to win. It's because she's gone about this in a very bad way. In order to defeat one's enemy, it is very important to see one's enemy's point of view. Whether you agree with it, and obviously being an enemy, most people do not agree with their enemy. But it is essential to see things through your enemy's eyes so that you can then communicate with them as to why you believe you are right. I mean, this is coming from me. If I wanted anything as a kid, sleepover, pocket money, clothes, anything. My father was a lawyer and my mother was a politician, and they'd say, Fiona, present your case. So from when I was itty-witty biddle, I had to present a case to a politician and a solicitor and give them the pros and cons. And I won, I won my case with them about 80% of the time. Now, I know this was just me as a kid and my mum and dad, but I would never have got anywhere with my parents by throwing a tantrum, stamping my foot and demanding stuff. It just wouldn't have worked. I've then gone on to have my own experiences with court. But I mean, basically this woman, Miss Fatima, she's not interested in their point of view. She's not interested in any other point of view. Hers is the only one. She's right, and that's that. Well, I've just had a glance at the Daily Mail to see what they made of all that, and they summarised it all pretty well up for you lot. I mean, if Harry might have been in the courtroom, I don't know. There was a guy in a blue suit sitting behind it, but I'm not sure it was him because I saw the chin and I couldn't see a beard. But I mean, if he was in the court case, there is no way he understood a word of what was going on, believe me. I would imagine they've got some sort of creche or playroom where he can go and he can watch it on a TV and have some gin and tonics and play PlayStation or something while it's all going on. That's what I would imagine, because he did turn up. But yeah, this woman was very, very arrogant, and it had to be her way. I mean, she's in the first instance was very polite, but as soon as any of them questioned her, she was like, no, that is what I am saying, and I am right, and you will see things my way. I mean, that's not the way to win a case. That's not that the Court of Appeal judges will care personally, they won't get a grudge. They just sit there. They're there to analyse law, to apply law. And the way it's going, the direction it's going, I think the other side might have got a chance to speak at the end. I was actually thinking how rude of her to go on and on and on and on. If she's got many interesting points to make and many valid points to make, yes, sure. But no, she was mostly arguing about the fact that policy is more than policy and that it is law, and that the Court of Appeal have cited her. She cited Lady Hale, I think she was the one who used to have the black the spider diamond brooch. I don't know what happened to her. Perhaps she died or retired. I don't know. She was wonderful. So she was referencing past judges of the Court of Appeal and saying, in this case, and interestingly, she cited some case that was to do with mental patients. I bet Harry's ears pricked up there, and where's she going? What's she trying to say about? She trying to say something. So then it will pursue again this afternoon and apparently tomorrow, and I can well believe it. I do find it's rather rude and greedy when barristers take up so much oxygen space in a courtroom, over-labouring a point instead of getting on with the business at hand. The court's time is extremely valuable. There's no need for that. And of course, the court aren't rude enough to say, time is money, you know. She did, I'm certain she said a few times, referring to the previous judge, I suppose was it Fancourt? She said, that's the judge disagreed with me. So perhaps he had this barrister before. Might have been a good idea to have, if that was the case, have a fresh perspective from another barrister, maybe. But I mean, she's certainly not, she's very intelligent, very clever. I think she'd probably do better teaching law than contentious work, because it takes a very special kind of personality to be, really, the barristers that I knew back in the day, they really were like Rumpole of the Bailey. They could make a point, capture the room's attention in a short phrase, sentence, or with an anecdote. They didn't need to waffle on and 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 on, because even judges are going to get to a point. There was one guy on the end who was like this, one of the judges. I don't think he even spoke during it. He may well have died during it. There's another little thing I wanted to say. I've noticed something with the maggots. They don't understand words like if, or if people say, for example, generally that seems to be the case. They take it that you're saying, that is the case. Or if that turns out to be true, they say, they said that is true. They don't hear the word if. They don't hear words like seems to be, or if it turns out to be. They don't seem to have that level of the English language. So I'll mention that. Oh, and finally, Trisha Goddard, totally different subject. God bless her. I think she's in Big Brother. I've never been a fan of Trisha Goddard. I've never agreed with a word she said, but I do agree with her. I love that she's gone into Big Brother, and I love that she's speaking up for people who have cancer and say, you know, they don't want pity, they don't want to be excluded, they don't want to be left out, they want to live life and join in. So this one's for Trisha Goddard. God bless her. Well, I may expire this afternoon if this woman is allowed to talk much longer and suck the oxygen out of the court. But I'll press on and I'll let you know. But I'll tell you one thing I'm not doing. I'm not going to listen to Lemonada. You guys want to know what that da-da-da-da-da woo is saying on Lemonada? Go watch it yourself. I'm not doing that. I am not doing a review. I don't have time for it. No one cares. She's irrelevant. As always, thank you very much for listening.